welcome to this session during the Data Week. The session is called Breaking Silos in Data Innovation in Europe, and we're going to share experiences of 3 projects, AI4EU, EU Hubs for Data, and DIH4D. We very much hope that this session will be relevant for people doing other projects. If you want to tweet about this session, don't forget to use hashtags of these 3 projects, AI4EU, DIH4AI, EU Hubs for Data. Now, I'm your moderator. My name is Natalie Chernetska, and I'm head of business development at TerraLab IMT. So TerraLab is a digital innovation hub based in France. We provide data infrastructure and also a variety of data services. And we are part of IMT. IMT is a big engineering school also in France. Let's start with some housekeeping rules. First of all participants or all members of the audience, except speakers and moderators, are muted by default. When we are not speaking, we are going to turn off our videos. If you want to ask questions, there is a dedicated Q&A box in your app. If you would like to speak, you can raise your hand and wait for me to give you the floor. And if there are any technical issues, please contact your Zoom host. And finally, additional piece of advice, if by any chance we're disconnected or you're disconnected or I'm disconnected, well, we are going to reconnect. We're going to connect back calmly. I'm very happy to moderate this session and very happy to be able to put together such a fantastic panel. In TerraLab, we are involved heavily in the 3 projects, AI4EU, EU Hubs for Data, and DIH4AI, and I'm personally involved in all of them. And the speakers that agreed to participate, I've worked with them on this project, but also with most of them I was working in a variety of different contexts, and they're all experts in their field. And I really learned a lot from every one of them. So I'm going to introduce them briefly and in alphabetic order by the first surname. So I'll start with Daniel Alonso Roman, who is Artificial Intelligence and Big Data Partnership Driver in ITI in Valencia, Spain, and he's the coordinator of EU Hubs for Data project. Giovanna Galasso is Director of Government Public Service, PWSC, and she's in coordination team of DIH4AI. And also she was very much involved coordinating AI DIH Network. Arnaud Gottlieb is a Chief Research Scientist, Research Professor, Head of the Validation Intelligence of Autonomous Software System Departments in Similar Research Lab in Norway. And Arnaud plays extremely important role in AI4EU project. He leads one of the work packages on industrial pilots. He's also running the industrial committee. He's member of the executive board, so plenty of roles and plenty of expertise between industry and research. We have Sergio Gusmeroli, research coordinator, Politecnico di Milano, coordinator of DIH4AI, coordinator of many previous projects as well, and we hope coordinator of many projects in the future. Dominic Cobalt is research area manager, social computing Knowledge Center. Dominic is very active in AI4EU projects, working on data in AI4EU, but also some other members of Knowledge Center are very active in EU Hub for Data project. Nuria Delamo, European Program Manager from Atos Research and Innovation. She's working both on sustainability and business models in AI4EU and DIH4AI. And her colleague, Thomas Pariente Lobo, Associate Head of AI Data and Robotics Unit, Atos Research and Innovation. He is working in AI4EU on pilots, and in DIH4AI, he's in charge of interoperability of the 2 projects. So these are my speakers. I'm really happy and thankful that they joined this panel. Now, the agenda of this session, so we have 1 hour and a half. And so the first item is introduction, the speakers, and that's what I'm doing right now. Then we are going to move to the overview of the 3 projects by Arnaud doing AI4EU, Giovanna DIH4AI, and Daniel EU Hubs for Data. And then we have two focuses. We have a focus on technical challenges, because obviously these projects are heavily technology intensive. And so AI4EU is building an AI on-demand platform, DIH4AI working on interoperability and bringing this platform to regional levels through DIHs, and EU Hubs for Data is building a federation of data-driven digital innovation hubs with multiple technical challenges. That's the first focus. And the second focus is on sustainability. In other words, what's going to happen beyond the funding period. And we also have 3 speakers for that. And then we conclude with lessons learned. Giovanna is going to speak about it, and I will moderate Q&A and conclusion session. So once again, this is our session on breaking silos in data innovation in Europe, experiences of AI4EU, EU Hubs for Data, and DIH4AI. Please use these hashtags when you tweet about this session, and you're obviously welcome to do so. And I will stop sharing my screen, and we're moving to overview of these 3 projects, and I'm giving the floor to Arnaud Gottlieb. Arnaud, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nathalie, for the nice introduction. Let me just say that I'm very honored to be part of this panel, and also very interested to know more about the other projects. But I now would like to briefly introduce the AI4EU project. And instead of showing slides, I would prefer to go for a live demo of the website, which is live now. So AI4EU is a research and innovation action which has started in 2019 together with 80 partners, with the ultimate goal to design the AI on-demand platform for Europe. And what we come up with, because the project will end at the end of this year in 2021, is a set of services or sections that allows a large community in AI to gather and to partner within this website. So I will go through the section that we have on the website. So first of all, it's important to say, because we are in this session for breaking the silos, it's important to say that this AI on-demand platform is really meant for being collaborative platform and for allowing contributions coming from a very broad AI community in Europe. And that's how we created that platform, and that's what we want. It is we haven't yet reached the point where it's fully designed how it's possible to contribute, but it's coming very soon. And we are, for example, just to let you know, currently in the process of designing the processes for integrating and validating content coming from various contributors, which will be at the end of the project every potential submitter of a content for the platform. So as it is, the platform collects a certain number of information about AI project or EU project related to AI. It contains a catalog of European AI organizations. It also has several links towards existing initiatives in various areas. This is really meant for gathering a large number of participants. It has also a limited, for the moment, collection of references to projects, but of course the goal is to extend this list of ongoing projects. You can see here some of the projects that are funded under ICT 49, but there are much more to come, obviously, and the goal is really to welcome the contributions and the links toward the existing projects that exist in Europe. There is a section dedicated to business and industry, currently with 11 verticals, and each of those verticals, they contain a certain number of information related to existing assets. I will briefly come back to the assets that we have: events, news, organization, and so on. And the goal here is really to collect information related to a specific industrial verticals, where it will be possible to integrate content and to provide content related to a specific area. We have started to collect case studies descriptions, which include showcases. So we have 4 of them at the moment, but the goal is, of course, to create a catalog of case studies, which will gather all the case studies that would have been created among the various projects that will put their contribution into the platform. We have a section dedicated to research, and it is organized as according to the Human AI framework of Europe. So you can recognize here the various section on the various elements which constitutes human AI. So explainable AI, verifiable AI, and so on. And you have descriptions of those areas. You also ultimately will get access to information about industry, students, researchers. And in this section, you also have access to the catalog, which contains currently approximately something like 70 AI resources of different areas. So you can search among those assets, but you can also, of course, get access to each of them with a certain number of information. So the goal is really to get access to a strong and large catalog of AI resources that can be useful for the community. There is also a section on education with some initiatives and news. There is a section on ethics with some information about the OSAI, which is the Observatory on Society and Artificial Intelligence, which has been designed in the AI4EU project, and which participated to the deep dive assessment on trustworthy AI. And ultimately, you also have access to services. And the first service that you can get access to is the experiment function of AI4EU, which allows you to create data and component pipelines on underlying execution platform. You have access to videos and tutorials which explains how to create those pipelines and how to experiment those. And there is also, through this function, access to a large marketplace of components which can be used in these pipelines. Eventually, you have news and events, and you also have access to the web cafes, which have been quite successful in the AI4EU environment. I don't want to take too much of your time on this, but I wanted to introduce you the website as it is now, and then I will give you back the floor, Nathalie, for the other projects to present.
Thank you very much, Arnaud. Very interesting. You know, I'm involved in this project, but it's also always very interesting to learn what. It's a very big project, but it's always interesting to see how other people present it. And now from AI4EU, let's move to DIH4AI, and I'm giving the floor to Giovanna Galasso.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but could you please put your slides in the
Okay.
Thank you.
So, good afternoon to you all. Some quick words about the DIH4AI project. This project aims at building a network of AI on-demand innovation and collaboration platform, interoperable with the AI4EU platform, supporting the joint development and service provision through a sustainable network of regional AI DIHs and targeted local SMEs, but also public administration and GovTech companies. This is a project that leverage on the methodological framework for DIH collaboration developed under the AI DIH Network initiatives, but also on the innovation collaboration platform DIHIWARE developed by the MIDI project. I will focus on the collaborative part, while Sergio Gusmeroli, the project coordinator, will focus on the platform part. For the consortium, we are 12 partners from 6 countries. Politecnico di Milano is the coordinator, but we have with us 5 regional digital innovation hubs. These were already part of the AI DIH network. 2 are from Germany, 1 from Czech Republic, 1 from Netherlands, and DGO from France. But we have also methodological partners apart from Polimi PwC, Innovalia, and Data, and AI tech providers Atos, TerraLab, and DECA. We build upon the result of AI DIH Network project. It was a project procured by the European Commission. We worked to create a network to lay down the basis for a network of the European of digital innovation hub with focus on artificial intelligence. We collected 150 applications. 30 hubs were selected. It was a first attempt also from the European Commission to map the state of the art and the available assets. We got several outcomes apart from the network. We worked on a first profile of an AI DIH, highlighting the characteristics in terms of service offering, competence, operating model. We signed a multilateral framework cooperation agreement among 25 AI-focused DIHs still in place. But most of all, we worked on a structured approach for cross-border collaboration, and we developed it through co-creation activities. So we defined 3 scenarios for cross-border collaboration, and also we test already within the project one of these scenario, meaning the AI maturity assessment collaboration pilot. Every result has been published. In fact, you can find the output of this project in the blueprint for cross-border collaboration and the final report, and everyone can take also inspiration from it. But as an outcome of the AI DIH network project, clearly emerged the need for fostering synergies by linking the network and the AI4EU service platform. So this is the basis of the DIH4AI project. The next step, what are we doing now or in the future? Because the project just started in January, only started in January. The AI DIH network cross-border collaboration scenarios that you find described in the final deliverable of the project that we tested a bit in the framework inspired the DIH cross-DIH collaborative experiment. The DIH4AI experiment are intra-DIH regional, but also cross-border. In terms of cross-border collaborative scenarios, we have 3 kinds of scenarios. The joint provision of complex services. These are scenarios, these are partnerships to provide services jointly, pulling together existing resources to enable DIHs to respond to a client request, leveraging on the capability and infrastructure available in the network. For example, a type of scenario is that some hubs have been working on is an AI summer school. Joint development of collaborative services. This is a very interesting scenario because it's related to the design, the development and provision of innovative new services to widen the DIH offering to the ecosystem. Here some example of scenarios the hubs have been working on is to work on an AI maturity assessment and on AI certification services. Finally, the third typology of scenarios, of cross-border scenarios we have been working on in the project is joint matchmaking of complementary competencies in terms of matchmaking to enable DIHs to provide new opportunities to the ecosystem. But also this additional DIH-driven experiment will be supported with open calls to implement SME-driven experiment and further expand their impact. So we will have 2 types of open calls targeted to SMEs and DIHs for both intra and cross DIH DIH experiment, one in fall 2021 and the second one in fall 2022. Finally, another area that we have been really working on, and it's important for the project, is that in line with the upcoming European regulation on AI, also different services and tools will be developed to support SMEs in ethical assessment certification of their AI applications. You find here our contact details, and we are open to give you any info about the project.
Thank you very much, Giovanna, about this overview of the project. And thank you very much for reminding us that this project was built upon a previous work, in particular, AI DIH Network. And now from DIH4AI, we are moving to another project which also leveraged AI DIH Network, namely EU Hubs for Data. And I'm very pleased to give the floor to Daniel Alonso Roman, who is the coordinator. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Natalie. I guess that you can see my screen and you can hear me, right?
Yes, yes.
So first of all, Natalie, thanks a lot for organizing this workshop. As you know, in EU Hubs for Data, to bring data-driven initiatives together and to connect with other relevant initiatives in Europe is a crucial point. So for us, this workshop is completely aligned with the strategy of the project, and actually AI4EU and also the projects under ICT 49 are key stakeholders in our community building strategy. So again, this workshop is completely aligned with our strategy. So thanks a lot for organizing. EU Hubs for Data is the acronym of our project, European Federation of Data-Driven Innovation Hubs. So I guess that the name is explicit enough, but just let me just use some slides to provide more inputs about our project. Just I start with some facts about the project. So here you have the official facts. The project started in September last year under the topic DTICT05. And even though we have a budget more than 12 million euros by contract, more than a half of this budget has to be directly devoted to benefit SMEs and startups. And this is why, as many of you, we are organizing also open calls to attract startups and SMEs to our ecosystem. But I will talk about that later on in the presentation. So as you can see here, one of the things that we are more proud in our project is of the strength of the consortium, not only because we were able to bring together all the species of BDBA at 2018, and it was a hard task, as you can imagine. The project is composed of 12 DIHs at this moment. And again, to organize all this consortium was quite hard, but challenging, but we are really proud of that. But also because we have been able to engage also many other relevant initiatives in Europe, as you can see here, BDBA as a core member, but also IDSA, Savala, CARSA, IDC, and other initiatives, with the final objective to become the European reference for data-driven innovation experimentation. This is our main objective, our overarching objective, and this is what we are pursuing by the creation of this federation, to bring together initiatives in Europe that are working on data-driven innovation and create this strong ecosystem around data innovation. Of course, we are also aiming to contribute to the creation of European common data spaces, for sure, but also to bring to our local ecosystems a more enriched offer that comes from the collaboration among all the DIHs. The final idea in our project is to bring together assets from different DIHs and initiatives and to enrich our local offers based on this collaboration and experimentation. We are also fostering data sharing. We are fostering joint service delivery across Europe, cross-border, and in this way, the project is very much related to what our colleagues in the previous project presenting in before. But our project is based in 6 pillars, as you can see here. So first is the starting point, the AI spaces of BDBA recognized in 2018. That were 10 AI spaces at that moment, enriched with two DIHs from Poland and also Slovenia. But the plan is also to enlarge this ecosystem during the project. So to this end, we have launched an open call for DIHs that will be open until the 15th of June. Of course, the third pillar is to engage with other relevant initiatives. In this case, this pillar is pretty much aligned. Is completely aligned with this workshop to engage with other initiatives, to learn from them, but also to collaborate in a deeper way, I would say. The fourth pillar is the offer, and probably Natalie will explain later on, because this is one of our main technical challenges to produce this federated catalog that involves assets from all the members of the federation. The fifth pillar is the demand, how we are attracting end users to the assets of the federation. And during the project, again, we are doing that through 3 open calls for experiments. So we are allowing SMEs and startups to propose experiments that will use the assets of the federation. And the sixth pillar, which is the future, and I will explain more about that in the next slot about sustainability, is the creation of a model that guarantee the evolution and the sustainability of the federation once the project is done. And for us, this objective, this pillar is crucial. I will not extend in this slide. You can imagine that we are combining this European dimension because we are bringing together, again, European actors to put together assets at European level, somehow enrich our own offer, but also very important, the regional dimension that is represented by the DIHs in the consortium, but also the offer and the demand sides. We are matchmaking the needs in our respective ecosystem and try to fill the gaps with assets coming from other DIHs, other institutions in Europe, to enrich our catalogs and to put at disposal of our SMEs in our ecosystem this larger federated catalog. I guess this slide will be explained later on by Natalie, I guess so, but again, this is our main asset, the federated catalog. Our idea is to move towards this scheme that you can see in the right part of my slide. So to have a federated catalog at European level, each of the DIHs will provide an instance of this catalog at a local level, taking the most rich pieces of the catalog to enrich a local and their own offer. At the end of the day, what we are doing is just we coming from different AI spaces and DIHs. Each of them has an individual offer. So what we are doing is creating this federation of DIHs that combining together our respective offers create this federated catalog of data-driven services and data sources, and of course other assets. But also important and related to this workshop is that we want to enrich our catalog with assets coming from other initiatives. Here we have 2 of them, and you are already providing meaningful insights about your respective offers. So our idea is to collaborate to enrich our offer and also yours with your and our assets. But also we're relying on already projects in Europe, data platform, data spaces, data sources to enrich again our catalog of data sets and data sources. And finally, outputs coming from other projects, other repositories, marketplaces, and so on. At the end of the day, to put all this value, all these assets, to bring all these assets to the end user, which are, well, the usual, as you know, SMEs, startups, citizens, and public administrations. I will not go into detail in this scheme. As you can imagine, we are creating a whole community around our project, and we have already identified many stakeholders. All of you are in those categories, as you can imagine. We already contacted some of you, and we will do also in the future. Our idea is, again, to foster synergies, create collaborations, and move towards this common European data space. Just to finish my presentation, again, this is a very important asset for us, the experiments. I already mentioned that. We launched our first open call in November last year, and we already have 10 experiments on board. And for us, it is very important not only to foster adoption of our asset, but also to learn from the process, to refine our service delivery, and to also to increase the satisfaction of the user. Finally, just to let me just announce that we have this open call running now for DIHs. It will close the 15th of June. So if you are interested, you are still on time. The goal is to involve in the project 18 new DIHs that will receive financial support and that will collaborate with us in all those objectives that I just mentioned before. And that's all from my side, Natalie. At this point, I will follow with this part later on in the next time slot. Okay.
Thank you very much, Daniel, for this overview of the project, and also for emphasizing that how much it is important to collaborate with other initiatives, not to do something just in our little corner. And obviously this session is all about breaking silos, learning from each other, engaging with other initiatives. So just a quick note to the audience. If you have questions to any of the speakers, please put them in the Q&A box, and we'll take these questions at the end of the session. just before the conclusions. Now, so we had an overview of the 3 projects, and obviously the presentations would be available, the session will be recorded, and obviously you can get in touch with speakers to learn more about these projects, and projects already have websites, you can consult them. And now let's focus on the first thing we wanted to discuss, technical challenges. All these projects are technology intensive. You know, AI4EU is by AI tools and assets, EUH4D, data-driven services, Datasets. So how we are dealing with those challenges, what we can learn from each other, what challenges they are. And we are going to start with presentation by Dominique Kovalt from Know Center. Know Center plays central role in AI4EU as a data partner, but also they play quite important role in EU hubs for data. So Dominique, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Natalie. As you heard, my name is Dominic. I work in the social computing research area at the Know Center, and in the next minutes, I want to talk about the role of datasets in AI platforms. I want to show 2 examples. One is from the AI4EU project, which we already heard about, and the second one is from a related project. It's the Trust project, where it's also the goal to build up a data platform. And I think we can all agree that data is very important for building up and training AI models. It can also be called the fuel of AI models. And so it's key to make the use of these data sets as easy as possible in these platforms. And we are working on this in these 2 projects, which I've mentioned before. So for the first one is more about the integration of open and high quality data sets into the AI4EU platform. And the second one is more about the findability and to bring these data sets and AI models to the users. This is an example from the Trust project where we built a recommender systems for this purpose. So I will start with the first one, AI4EU. And here we from Know Center are leading the task on European data for AI. The goal of this task is to build up a very smooth integration of external data sets with the AI4EU platform. I want to show now one example of this. So one example of an external platform here is the open machine learning platform OpenML. If you don't know OpenML, it's quite similar to Kaggle. So people can go there, upload data sets, they can upload AI models. They can also define some challenges where, for example, you need to optimize a specific metric and for a given data set and a given machine learning model. For integrating these data sets, we came across 2 challenges. One is a technical one, the second one is more from a research side. The technical challenge could be solved by the underlying Acumos AI open source framework, where the AI4EU platform is built upon. And this one offers a very convenient data broker concept. And this allows to quite easily query data from external APIs, such as the OpenML API in our case, and then directly feed it to AI models. And this can even happen on the fly and line by line. Then from a research perspective, it was our goal to not only integrate all the data sets we can find in OpenML, but just integrate the high quality ones. And for doing this, we draw upon social indicators we have in the platform. On this slide on the left, we see distribution plots of these different social indicators we find there. So for example, we have likes that people give on a data set. We have the number of downloads for a data set. We have something like the social media reach, the social media impact. And based on this distribution, we can come up with some given thresholds in order to build a filter criteria. And then we can boil down from more than 3,000 data sets we have in the platform to 155 high quality data sets, at least high quality according to these social indicators. Now coming to the second example. So here the idea is, once we have these assets in the platform, like data sets and AI models, we want to bring them to the user, and a recommender system is quite convenient for this. And so in the Trust project, which is quite related to AI4EU, we are doing this, and we are building different recommendation use cases. You see them on the left side. So we can recommend data sets to users, we can recommend services to users. In this case, a service is the same as an AI model. And we can also try to interlink these entities. So we can recommend data sets to services, we can recommend services to data sets, and we can suggest similar data sets for a given data set or similar services for a given service. We're doing this by using our scalable recommender framework, which we're developing at the Know Center. I cannot go into details now about the system architecture we see on the right side of the slide, but I also put the website of our framework there. So if you're interested in, you can take a look here where the different components and the different functionalities are explained in more detail. So with this, I want to close this now and thank you, and also have one take-home message, because we really believe that the easy integration of and the easy access to data sets is really the key for the success and also the sustainability of AI platforms. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dominic, and thank you also for bringing this experience and your expertise in Trust project. And obviously, what you're saying is important for us in AI4EU, but also we can learn quite a lot in EU Hubs for Data. Now, let's move to our next speaker, and I'm giving the floor to Sergio, who is going to speak about Sergio Gusmeroli from DIH4AI project. He's going to talk about DIH4AI platform. Please, Sergio, the floor is.
Thank you very much. I'm Sergio Gusmeroli, the coordinator of the DIH4AI project. And you have seen already a presentation of the project by Giovanna before. Now I'm focusing more on some technical aspect of our platform for regional interoperable DIH network. So you know that the major aim of DIH4AI is to regionalize AI4EU. This is a very basic motto, but it is something really true in the sense that we are ICT49 project, so AI on demand platform. We are closely linked to the AI4EU, and you have seen from Arnaud and from some previous speakers what AI4EU is doing for Europe and for the adoption and diffusion of AI in Europe. We are complementing this with the regional dimension. And so the regional dimension is something which is quite important nowadays, because on the one side, the regional dimension is a very important dissemination and exploitation channel for European projects. But on the other side, the regional dimension is very rich of innovative local, for instance, AI innovators, which cannot have a full European visibility, but which have just a regional visibility. And it is important, very important, to mix the two, to make this interoperability between the regional dimension and the pan-European dimension. How to do that? We are proposing a platform, an ICT platform, which is an innovation and collaboration platform, which is called DIHIWARE. And it is a very modular platform, open source, and you can pick and place some of the modules of this platform in your own web portal. And so you could keep your look and feel, you could keep your basic human interaction, graphical human interface, but below you have a set of background modules which will allow interoperability. So interoperability is our major aim. And first of all, interoperability DIH to DIH. That is interoperability between one region and another region, according to the collaboration models that Giovanna explained before. And so how to implement these collaboration models? We could implement it by design. So if by design they are using some of the modules of the DIHIWARE platform, then interoperability will be achieved in a seamless way. And which are those modules? First of all, a platform, a knowledge management platform, which is based on Liferay, then a marketplace of catalogs, and then innovation and collaboration services. And more in detail, the knowledge management system is a way to share skills, competencies, experts, human resources, so which are very important in the domain, in this case, in the domain of AI. Then we have a system to manage catalogs, and the catalogs of very different entities, of different assets. We have a catalog of services, we have a catalog of use cases, of experiments, we have a catalog of AI asset, and we are also implementing a catalog of datasets. And this also relates to what previous speakers said about catalog of datasets. And this is under a trusted and data sovereignty way of interoperability, which is managed by our identity manager, which means that you could share your data just with those DIH you want to share those data. How to use the DIHIWARE platform? We have basically three scenarios. One scenario is level 1, which means that every single digital innovation hub could use an instance of the DIHIWARE in order to manage the knowledge, the catalogs, the innovation, and the collaboration inside their constituency. Inside their constituency of SMEs, of public authorities, of investors, of research and technological organization, of competence centers, and so on and so forth. So this is the level 1. And we invite all the digital innovation hubs to install a copy of this DIHIWARE. And as Giovanna said, we have an ecosystem of 30 AI digital innovation hubs which participated in AI DIH Network, and extended ecosystem of 150 AI digital innovation hubs. Level 2 is some sort of meta platform for more than one digital innovation hub. One example of that, if you go to the Smart Anything Everywhere marketplace, you could see that behind this portal, which is joining 6 projects in the CPS, cyber physical system and smart system domain. Below this level, you have the DIHIWARE platform, the modules of the DIHIWARE platform, which are managing the catalogs, the competencies, and the innovation and collaboration. And then you have level 3, which is the level of services. So we have invented in our project a BEST methodology, business ecosystem skills and technology services, which is inspired also by the European Digital Innovation Hub 4 dimensions of test before invest, skill development, ecosystem building, and find investment. And we have an application based on DIHIWARE, which is DIH for industry. And you could access this portal. It collects the services provided by DIH in Europe for manufacturing industry. And This is an example of this DIH for industry, where you have different communities, the community of I4MS, the community of Smart Anything Everywhere, the community of Industrial IoT in the SCODINET, the community of robotics, Digital Innovation Hub, and the community of BDVA, Digital Innovation Hubs. And in this perspective, we are in connection with EUH4D exactly in order to start this collaboration. From a more technical viewpoint, I said that by design, you could have interoperability between one DIH and another DIH running the DIHIWARE platform. But in the DIH4AI project, we are also envisaging an interoperability with AI4EU. And you have seen the new AI4EU portal, and we are going to establish a portal interoperability in order to allow a seamless search of competencies, assets, experiments, and the search could be extended to the regional platform, to the different regions belonging to our ecosystem. Then we have a data interoperability for data exchange, for data interoperability, which is based on data sovereignty, the principle of the International Data Spaces Association. And then we have a cloud interoperability for test before invest. That is a cloud interoperability acts as a service in order to run experiments from the regional to the European dimension. The project, as I said, just started in January, and so we are envisaging the requirements and the specification of this interoperability framework. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sergio, for this very clear, very pedagogical presentation of the technical issues of the tech being addressed at the DIH4AI project. And also it's very impressive. The project just started and you already have achieved quite a lot. So our next panelist is also involved in DIH4AI, but also in AI4EU, and is going to talk more about interoperability about these between these two projects. So Thomas Pariente, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you very much for inviting me also to this webinar. I think that we already have seen some presentation about both projects, the DIH4AI and AI4EU. Sergio now introduced some key aspects of interoperability in his previous presentation. So allow me to go a little bit more in detail on these interoperability aspects. So the thing is that the first challenge that I have here in this presentation is precisely how to explain interoperability between these two, let's say, big platforms, these complex platforms, in just 5 minutes, right? So it's almost impossible, I could say. But then there's nothing impossible, as you can see here. So there is a clear overlap between these two projects, the AI world in the one hand, but also jokes aside, I have to say that the rationale between this combination of logos is fundamentally true, because if you look closely at it, it represents how the regional and the European aspects must be combined in Europe to bring AI not only to the European community as a whole, but also to local communities, local SMEs, startups, represented in this case by the DIH4AI project. So it's a mixture between the concept of regional, local, and European. So this mixture of logos is not so difficult to understand, I guess. So, but let me go in more details to the key cornerstones that I think that any project related to interoperability should have, especially for AI in Europe. So I have here four main cornerstones that range from infrastructure interoperability to data interoperability, also data science and EU values, and cross-regional and pan-European values. So in more details, you can see that it's very important from the infrastructure perspective to have a solid and interoperable federated infrastructure, and services. One example on that could be Gaia X, or this is an example that is clearly now on the rise. There could be others, but at least we need this infrastructure cornerstones in place for interoperability. Same happens with data interoperability. It's very important to have, in order to have good AI, to have secure, fair, and trustworthy cross-organizational data sharing. An example of that can be also the international data space associations and everything that is around there, although there are also the potential ways of achieving interoperability. Then it's of course very important to have in mind that these EU values, in order to have let's say a very European AI, so based on these core values and a very good data science. So this trustworthy AI should be based on the one hand on this trustworthy and cross-organizational data that we have, but also in the EU values and regulations. And this in AI4EU, there is also this observatory on ethical AI, which is quite important. So everything is aligned to these aspects. And last but not least, this collaboration, this sharing of resources and interoperability between regional and local and the EU levels in terms of all these aspects is quite important, and this is what we would like to have in the DIH4AI. So you have seen this slide in the previous presentation. Sergio already explained a lot about the DIHIWARE platform, so the different aspects, and just hinted the different levels of interoperability that we will have to have with AI4EU. This is the old picture because, as you know, as you probably know, AI4EU is evolving, is creating a new vision of the architecture. So the one that you see in the right hand side, I'm not entering into the details, but of course is the new AI4EU architecture with new features, enhancements that are now during these days being developed at a very fast pace. They are following also an AI4EU, an open development model, including not only resources and features from inside the AI4EU, but also from other external resources. And we can count other ICT49 projects such as the AI4AI as part of this open development model. So this means that we are looking from the DIH4AI at this alignment with AI4EU and the different potential interoperability links, looking at the new architecture as well. So as a matter of example, next week we will have an internal workshop in the AI4AI where we have invited several people from AI4EU precisely to discuss about potential interoperability scenarios. So this gives you an idea that we are still evolving on these interoperability aspects. So there are some technical challenges related to interoperability and at the three levels that we are looking at in the DIH4AI. So for instance, at portal level, as you can see, there are different technologies involved in both portals. There are similar but different ways of dealing with identities, which is quite important to achieve interoperability. So we will need to have a closer look to the ways we are defining identities in the two projects, looking at the APIs, for instance, the single sign-on APIs, search APIs, etc., in order to understand how to find the best scenarios to share or search resources between the two portals. From the data perspective, we have already heard some examples from Dominic in his presentation before about, for instance, how the integration of the dataset can be done in AI4EU using this data broker concept from Acumos AI, how to fetch data using APIs take this data to the model into Acumos. In DIH4AI, the idea is to base our work on data in the International Data Spaces Association work, so using ITSA for cross DAH, but also to try to do something with AI4EU in terms of interoperability with data. And we will have to do some experiments to see exactly how it goes. If the experiment should go closer to where the data resides or vice versa. This is we should think on different type of approaches and related to data interoperability. And this cloud interoperability or infrastructure interoperability, we are also looking at different scenarios of using, for instance, the AI4EU experiments functionality based on Acomos from the different DIHs. And also we have some questions related to that. We hope to solve some of them during the coming workshop and in the coming months. But the idea is that also we may have some kind of execution environments also dealing with same infrastructure that we have in AI4EU in DIH4AI, or interoperability in terms of how to use the different infrastructure that we have in the two projects. So just summarizing a little bit what I just heard, I just said. So in the DIH4AI, we aim to have this architecture for interoperability between both platforms, the European and regional AI on-demand platforms. And this can be done in different planes. We have this portal level, this data level, and this platform level. We are still looking at the different scenarios and looking at different possibilities, also looking at the evolution that is happening in AI4EU in order to understand new opportunities. And we are taking some inspirations, of course, in existing initiatives out there. I mentioned it's the reference architecture, but also GaiaX, I mentioned already there, that architecture as well. So we will try to base our technical interoperability foundations on these large initiatives and see how far we can go with that. And that's the overall idea that we have so far for interoperability in the project. So thank you very much. That's all from my side.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Thomas, for reminding us about this these very crucial issues of interoperability between AI4EU and DIH4AI. And from AI4EU, you know, the project is approaching its final months. The project is going to end at the end of the year, and obviously ensuring interoperability between the follow-up project is one of the critical challenges we are facing now. And now to conclude this deep dive on technical challenges, I'm actually giving the floor to myself, and I will quickly give you an update on technical challenges in EUH4Data project. From EUH4Data project, and I will start with the paraphrasing Thomas, who said how you can explain it in 5 minutes. So how can you explain technical challenges in EUH4Data project in 5 minutes? You cannot. And in fact, yesterday we had a whole session dedicated to technical challenges of EUH4Data, whole session for 1.5 hours, of which presentations and slides and recordings are going to be available. So I will really sum up what the key challenges we have. And I will start with the slides that Daniel already showed. So we are building federated catalog of data sets, data services, and also courses. And we already have a first version, and how we are moving towards a real federated catalog instantiated at regional level. So the federation of DIH, that's you have a visualization. We all DIHs have their own catalogs, of services, of data sets, of courses, normally offered to their regional markets. And these catalogs are in a wide variety of shapes. In some cases, you have the whole database where everything is available automatically, and in some cases, you just have a contact form. So there's a really heterogeneous approach to local catalogs. So now what we want to do, we want to build a federated catalog and even go beyond. What does it mean? It's building a catalog on a premises of a global catalog and local offer. So it means catalog is common, but support is offered locally. And obviously there is a variety of considerations we need to deal with, from homogeneity of catalogs, homogeneity of services, homogeneity of data sets offered or not offered. If we just go to the question of data sets in general, how do we harmonize data and metadata across the whole federation? And obviously there is a whole aspect to consider involving data privacy and data security, data access, etc. So these are sort of the steps we are going through right now to achieve this federated catalog. We are unifying the offer by identifying similar items. We are categorizing these services and datasets using common model, and we are already on our second categorization. We have designed the first version, which is available online, as you have seen, right? The first version is available online. Now we are gathering feedback from DIHs who used this new this categorization system to describe and provide their services, but we're also gathering feedback from SMEs and entrepreneurs who applied for open calls, who were the first users of the federated catalog. And also we are going to get more feedback as we started first experiments. And so we're going to improve this catalog based on this feedback. We need to consider this year or early next year and how we are adding assets from other initiatives, in which form, what would be the technical implications of that, and then we need to iterate. So this is sort of federated catalog, right? But federated catalog, it's not just offering the services in one way. It's also going beyond and considering such issues as interoperability and data sharing. So our ambition is to create a trusted data exchange environment. And so we adopted technological standards and we are very actively implementing them. So we are working together with one of the partners, IDSA. So our standard that we adopted is IDSA connector standards, and working to see how we can connect those services using IDSA models. And obviously another aspect again is how we use our experiments, our pilots from open calls, how we're using them to validate both the catalog, but also interoperability and data sharing implementations. So, you know, the idea is, so we are making applicants to select services and data sets from different DIHs, and then try to establish connections between those services in data sets. That's basically all I have to say about, as I said, EUH4D, there are multiple challenges, but we had the whole session dedicated to them, and you're really very welcome to look at these challenges more in detail by consulting documentation from that session. So now that was sort of our first focus on all this, on the project, on the technical aspects of the project. EU Hubs for Data, DIH4AI, AI4EU. As you see, there's quite a lot of similarities, building platforms, interoperability, integrating with other similar initiatives, but also some specific challenges to each project. And once again, if you have any questions to any speakers, please put them in the box. We'll take them during the Q&A session. And the second, so that was the first focus of our panel. And the second focus is sustainability. So we all are funded, obviously we receive European funding to participate in this project, and it is great. But then the $1 million question, or rather the €1 million question, is what happens beyond the funding period? What is a sustainability model? How we approach those questions? What's going to happen after? And we'll start with considering those questions, how they're approached in those three projects. And I will start with EU Hub for Data by giving the floor to the project coordinator, Daniel Alonso-Roman. Daniel, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Natalie. Well, before starting, I have to say that I really like the presentation from Sergio and Thomas. This double dimension, European and regional, this is what we are doing in EUH4D, as I explained before. So probably we can learn a lot from you guys, from what you are doing, and maybe the other way around. So happy to have meetings together to explain in more detail what we are doing in our respective projects. Okay, coming back to the future and sustainability, I have to say that, of course, now at this stage, we have more questions than answers for sure, because even though our project started 8 months ago, these are topics that we have not still addressed in so much detail. But for sure, as I mentioned in my previous presentation, for us, sustainability is not just an additional or another aspect of the project, but it is a very important one. I would say the most important one, because what we are aiming in the project is to create this federation to be sustainable, to be efficient, to be scalable. So for us, it's crucial to define, again, to think of sustainability as a general aspect in the project. In this way, what we have done is to talk to all the people, all the partners in the consortium, all the task leads, the work packet leads, for them to take into account 2 words where carry out all the activities of the project: scalability and sustainability. So we want that all tasks in EUH4D are carried out taking into account those 2 words. So we would say that we are somehow performing sustainability as design, because again, we are taking into account that we see the project as a pilot to learn from the project, to adopt models, to again learn from the experiments, for all the aspects, for the SMEs, the new involvement of the DIHs, to define this model of the federation. So as you can imagine, this is again a very transversal task in the project, and for us is very important. But again, also we have a whole work package dedicated to the future and sustainability in the project, and not by chance this work package is led by BDBA DIRO. Because at the end of the day, this project was conceived within the BDBA environment. All of us are, all the hubs are IA spaces, and all the new hubs will be IA spaces. So BDBA plays a key role in this project, but also because they have the experience of having set up this, I wouldn't say similar initiatives, but at least sustainable ecosystem involving different actors. So again, not by chance, BDBA is running this work package that basically involves all those aspects that I have summarized in this slide. Now, in the project, we are defining a code of conduct, and we want to have it ready as soon as possible to enter into force as soon as possible, because somehow this code of conduct will lay the foundations of the whole framework, of the whole collaboration framework of the DIHs in the federation. We are also, this code of conduct will be part of a more, let's say, holistic way of the federation that will involve all the aspects to be taken into account with defining the federation, cooperation between DIHs, IPR, governance model, operational model, IT governance, and all these aspects. And of course, a very important part of this model will be, and they are the expansion strategy. Again, we are running an open call for DIHs, and based on this experience, we will define the expansion strategy that we will put into place once the project is done, but also the business strategy and the exploitation strategy. And to this end, we have a dedicated partner in the project, which is CARSA. Our colleagues from CARSA ran a very interesting workshop yesterday about exploitation and sustainability of networks of DIHs and similar ecosystems. But also all these tasks are somehow percolated by the ethical framework. We in the project, we have defined an ethics monitoring group to monitor all the activities of the project, but also to define the future ethical framework of the federation. And finally, also very important, the legal framework in what we are going to run the federation. We are taking into account all the publication from the Commission, that, of course, as probably all of you, the Data Governance Act, but also other important publications that we will use to define the data regime of the federation, but also the whole legal framework. In this way, for us, again, highlighting the double dimension, the European dimension, and the regional dimension, but also I guess that it is also an advantage in our project, because we have, again, BDBA on board. We have also 12 DIHs on board that are mature enough and also very deeply rooted in their respective ecosystem. So in principle, we have all the elements to define this sustainability model very well defined. And yeah, but it also very depends on how we are going to define the federation. As you can see here, we are considering some kind of a hybrid model, not completely decentralized, but not completely distributed. And for sure, the final shape of this model how many responsibilities are taken into each of the parts, will also define the final model of the federation. Here, as you can see here, some of the aspects has to be defined or will fall under the scope of this, what we have called EUH4D federated entity. As you can see here, taking care of the federated catalog, taking care also of connection with other initiatives, and at the end of the day, be the entry point in Europe to our federation. But also at regional level, we have the hubs that they are managing the local offers. They are also in contact with the regional data providers, technology providers, users, and also all the regional agencies at local and regional level. So we have to combine this both dimensions, and this is what we are working now in the project, how we are combining those dimensions, what responsibilities fall into each of the scopes, and based on that, we will define this model that I mentioned before, that we will be ready during or at the end of the project. So just my last slide, I know that it is very vague, of course. As I mentioned before, we are just at the starting point. We have a specific task devoted to definition of the model led by CARSA. Just going into more detail, the financial and economic sustainability, of course, it will depend very much on different aspects that we are now defining in the project. For instance, very important is the value proposition that we are going to have. Not only the hubs now in the federation, but also potential new hubs coming from the open call, but also from other processes. And it will very much depend on the operational model that we are defining in the federation. The operational model will impact very much in the value that we are giving to new members of the federation. Of course, the governance model, as I mentioned before, to what extent it is centralized or distributed, where responsibilities fall into each of the scopes, will define also the list of costs that we are addressing or we are facing in the process. And of course, it will impact also in the final sustainability model. And last, also, the revenues, the revenue stream that we'll have in our federation will depend very much on the business and exploitation that we are going to run. If we are defining kind of a fee, we are charging for using the services, data sets, and all this stuff that you all know for sure better than me, will impact in the revenue stream and also in the final model that we will adopt at the end of the project. But for me, very important matter, and I wanted to share with you, is that also we are learning from experiences and best practices from other initiatives. We learned in the past EBDBF from other networks that are already running that it is a very important aspect, sustainability. So we are also learning from others. In this case, for instance, for AI4EU, for sure, we can learn a lot from this project, but also from DIH4AI in the probably you are facing or a similar exercise in your project. So again, we are eager, we are more than happy to learn from all of you and also from other initiatives to enrich and complement our model that again will depend still on many factors and activities that we are now running in the project. So this is all from my side. Natalie, I know that I was not very specific, but again, we are just at the starting of our journey, and we have many aspects to consider. But at least I gave a brief overview of what we are doing in our project.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Daniel, for this overview. And I think it's very important to learn from each other, and also different projects have very different approaches. As you said, EU Hub for Data, first of all, started thinking about sustainability very early on. The project started last September, and there are already considerable efforts dedicated to this question, and obviously relying on very experienced partners like BDVA for governance, or CARSA for exploitation is a very good strategy. So you also mentioned the value proposition. Value proposition is something all the projects are concerned with respect to what happens after the funding period. It's also a question that we are now solving within AI4EU project, which, you know, on the finishing line is going to finish at the end of the year. And so now let's see what are the considerations in AI4EU project about sustainability, value proposition, and the future. And I'm giving the floor to Arnaud Gauthier.
Thank you, Natalie. Yes, as you said, we have an initiative in AI4EU to understand and to make propositions for the sustainability of the platform and to understand how we can provide a sustainable model for developing and continuing developing the platform for and to support the large European AI community. At the beginning of this, we have the collection of the user requirements. In order to be sustainable, we need to understand what is the need and what are the needs and from different communities. And here in my presentation, because this has been mostly the work that I followed myself, I'm going to talk about only the user requirements coming from large companies. So we've conducted a series of interviews with high-level decision makers from big companies in Europe. We have also had numerous discussions within the industrial committee of AI4EU. And from there, we came up with key messages on what shall be done in order to get sustainable. So here also, I will not come with a very precise recommendations or solutions for the sustainability of the platform, because this is an ongoing work. And even though we are not far from the end of the project, we are still working on understanding how we can get sustainable and what are for example, the business models that are the most appropriate for the platform. And this is a work that I know, Nathalie, you know very well because you are leading this effort. But I will focus in my presentation on the needs of the user requirements coming from large companies. There are different key messages, and the first key message that comes from interviews and discussions with stakeholders from large companies is that they want to get access to excellence in AI. And they want to get access to excellence in AI coming from research partners. So that's very clear. And they need to have access, or they would like to have a strong access to technologies such as automated planning, constraint optimization, natural language processing, machine learning, deep learning, knowledge representations, and so on, because those technologies, they are not so easily amenable to industrialization. And even though usually those large companies, they have a strong research and development departments, they still, of course, need to increase their connections with the strong and important AI research community that is there in Europe. Accessing to AI research, both in terms of resources and competencies, is made in Europe is quite crucial for industrial and business-oriented companies. And this is mostly because this is for supporting their competitiveness in this worldwide environment. So they want to get access not only to competencies, but also to resources. And that's why we have a catalog of AI resources in AI4EU, but I saw in the previous presentations that there are also other catalogs that would lead to access to both resources, data sets, competencies, and I think that we are all going in the right directions to somehow respond to the need of those big industrial companies. A third aspect of this access to excellence in AI from research is also to understand how we can develop software engineering methods for AI. And this is because it needs to be reinvented for developing AI application. It is very different to deploy an AI system which is based on machine learning models, trained models, instead of developing a classical, safety critical or business critical system. And I want to just dig a bit into this particular point by mentioning a chain which is classical, or which is usually considered when we develop statistical machine learning models, and when those models are embedded into a specific system. So we have a succession of different processes. So model requirements, data collection, data cleaning, labeling, feature engineering, model training, which is of course a feedback loop with feature engineering, model evaluation, model deployment, and model monitoring. What are the needs there? So if we look, for example, at model requirements, requirements engineering as it is developed and available through various existing tools, we need to have tools that collect and formalize user requirements related to data curation. And that's not so present at the moment. We are still lacking some very strong tools in that area. When we look at the data pipeline, collection, cleaning, labeling, we need support for data representation, data selection and augmentation, anonymization, visualization. We know that for the moment, in most cases, in most case studies, the labeling aspects of the data set is manual. So we need support for self-supervised methods in order to automatically label those data sets if we want to be successful in order to deploy successful AI models within systems. If we look at the model engineering part, there, the large companies, they say they need support for different aspects, hyperparameters tuning, auto-encoder design, training algorithm selection, and deep neural network architecture design. And of course, they have this recurrent challenge with model evaluation and versioning. I will not tell you something that you don't know, but they need also to understand how they can get access to HPC resources and large infrastructure. And I know that there are large European infrastructure, national infrastructure for providing high-performance computing resources. But large companies, they need to understand how they can get access to those resources in an acceptable way, in a sustainable way. Testing support is still missing, of course, as well in this model engineering phase. Eventually, model monitoring and how to improve models over the time is still something which is not very well understood. And there are still strong research activities there. We need support for continuous integration, continuous deployment of models. And this is something which is needed by large companies. So this is the first key message that comes from large companies. They want to get access to excellence AI research in terms of components, resources, access to HPC, and so on, access to software engineering methods. The second message that we've collected throughout the interviews and the various user requirements collections sessions that we did is that they want to have access to a vibrant European ecosystem of AI. And here, I'm quite sure that connecting and sharing good experiences, good results with all the projects that were presented beforehand with the DIH and so on might be a key aspect to have and to create a successful, vibrant European ecosystem of AI. Large companies, they want to get access to innovative tech provider, SMEs developing AI solutions for specialized business areas. They also need to have a closer access to European AI policymakers, DIH, of course, obviously. And I think that if we can connect in a fruitful way the various initiatives that we have here, that might be a key of success for having a strong European AI community in Europe. Providing that, this ecosystem builds upon several projects funded by the European Commission, ICT48, ICT49, ICT38, but also much more than that. And the goal is really to develop different application domains of AI, and the companies that are interested to participate and contribute to that effort. So it's a very strong message for sustainability. If we are able to develop industrial verticals throughout the projects that are attractive for the companies that are positioned in a specific vertical, I think this would be very attractive, and this would be a key for having their support, and not only their technical support, but also their support in terms of funding. So that's the second message. The third message that came out of this analysis from large companies, they want to have access to trustworthy AI. They believe that a platform enabling the creation of trustworthy application is a key aspect. So adopting the trustworthy AI ethics guideline as it has been proposed by the high-level expert group in AI could be a strong differentiator with other platforms in Europe. For that, they need tools and services for implementing trustworthy AI in an efficient way, and also to support SMEs to build trustworthy AI application adopting those ethical guidelines. So it is a very strong idea that in Europe we can develop and we can count on having trustworthy AI, and that's really something on which the large companies, at least the ones that we have discussed with, they consider as a key differentiator with the rest of the existing platforms in the world. Eventually, adopting the upcoming EU legal framework, and especially the Artificial Intelligence Act, seems also to be a very important and key aspect of their activity. It seems that they perceive AI in the European fashion as something which can be a real competitive advantage for their own business. So yes, that's. I just wanted to recall briefly what is trustworthy AI. So just to remind you briefly, what has been defined here is it's a set of 7 key requirements, which are based on 4 ethical principles. Those 4 ethical principles include respect for human autonomy, prevention of harm, fairness, explicability. And those 4 ethical principles, they can be decomposed into 7 key requirements to satisfy. You have the list here, and one of the ideas is to build services that could help, that could support with tools the adoption of trustworthy AI, and especially if those services are accessible on the AI4EU platform. And you can see that many different tools can be adopted for that. There are some tools which are well known that already exist, surveys and questionnaires, for example, ethics by design, guidelines and rules. But you have also the need for technical tools for evaluating the trustworthiness of applications with respect to trustworthy AI, metamorphic testing, explanation methods, traces analyzer, outliers detection, adversarial testing, and so on and so on. So that's it. The takeaway message from my presentation is from the large company point of view, the sustainability of the platform, and more generally the support of AI in Europe needs to. For that we need to provide access to excellent research in AI, to a vibrant European ecosystem of AI, and to an AI platform enabling the creation of trustworthy application. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Arnaud, for talking about those stakeholders' needs for such a platform as AI on-demand platform. Just to remind you that in AI4EU there are multiple activities around sustainability, starting from stakeholders' needs, like industrial committee, like Arnaud just mentioning. There are also activities engaging SMEs and DIHs, and there is also a task force that Arnaud mentioned, of which he is a member. Also, Nuria Delama, who is the next speaker, is a member, but also quite a lot of other prominent people, like we have Eva Martinen-Keiter from Telenor, we have Suzanne Cura from IT. So the task force is also helping to shape the sustainability for AI4EU platform. And now Nuria Delama, you already see her, and she's going to speak about AI4EU and DIH4AI. So Nuria, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Natalie, for inviting me to this interesting session. I have learned a lot from the colleagues. Let me share my presentation. And in fact, you mentioned in the beginning that sustainability is the $1 million question. So I can tell you that if I had an answer for this one, I would have more money in my bank. I don't have $1 million in my bank, so I don't have answers. And as Danny mentioned before, I think that it would bring more questions than answers. But I think that this is good because it allows us to discuss a bit about the topic, which is a very important one. So my name is Nuria Delama. I'm European Programs Manager at Atos, and I'm also a member of the Board of Directors of the Big Data Value Association. And I will talk about sustainability. Here I'm representing two projects, AI4EU and DIH4AI, but I would say that more DIH4AI, where I'm more involved, while AI4EU in AI4EU plays a major role, as you've seen through my colleague Thomas, but I'm less involved. I'm still contributing a bit to the sustainability aspect. And I'm happy that I will provide a complementary view to what my colleagues have already mentioned. DIH4AI has just started at the beginning of the year, so we are even in an earlier stage than my previous colleagues. But looking at the presentation made by Arnaud, what I realize is that having a complete and convincing value proposition is very difficult. And even at the end of the project, as it is your case, it is very difficult to comply or to fulfill with all the requirements that you got from industry. So this means that you really need to find the resources to make sure that you will really reach that level of completeness or fulfillment of what industry and other stakeholders need. So sustainability is basically how to create the right framework and to ensure that you have the right stakeholders, the structures, and the money to do so. And what I wanted to do in this presentation is to focus a bit on the concept of platform, because I think that's something that is common to many projects now funded by the European Commission, and especially the ones that have been presented today, is that we are all the time talking about platforms. So what are the implications of being a platform from a business point of view? And I would like to reference this study called Online Platforms, Economic and Societal Effects that was charged by the European Parliament. And I think it's very interesting because it doesn't go in depth into the technical aspects, but it really tells you about implications from many other points of view of being a platform and what it means being a platform in the operational environment of Europe. So this is quite important, and that's why I say being a platform or not, that is the question, and what are the implications. So what is really a platform, an online platform or a digital platform? This is basically defined as digital services that facilitate interactions via the internet between two or more parties, independent set of users. It can be companies, it can be individuals, and within this concept of platforms, we can find online marketplaces, app stores, search engines, social media, platforms for the collaborative economy, either at cross-sectorial level or operating in a very concrete sector. And then as a platform, you can act directly with final users as a service provider, or you can be an intermediary linking different parties. Based on this definition, I would say that most of the projects that have been presented today fit with that definition. So then what it implies, or what are the characteristics of these platforms that are especially important when looking at the sustainability? And for sure in my presentation, I'm assuming that the value proposition is already clear and that there is a technical value, that everything works, and that basically from a technical point of view, everything is clear and set up. So let's go and the next steps beyond that. So platforms in general are based on the generation of economies of scale and network effects. This is very important because this means that when you design your sustainability plan, you really need to think about how to create these network effects. And that has a lot of implications. In general, business models depend on the cross-subsidization across platform sites. So it can be paid by some sides of the multi-sided market, some other sides. Some people may get access to the services for free, some others not. But this needs to be defined. And then normally, one of the characteristics is the pervasive data generation, data capture, and usage. So I see that in general, most of the platforms we have talked about today talk about data as one of the services that is offered to people, but they don't consider data as an integral part of their business model, in which way this data can be monetized, not only by a party that is already doing business through the platform, but also as a business model for the sustainability of the platform as such. So digital platforms in general create value by facilitating exchanges and transactions and through fostering innovation. And one way of creating this kind of innovation is precisely enabling third-party companies or organizations as software developers to build complementary products or services. Again, as mentioned, I think that based on the presentations we have heard today, we can agree on the fact that somehow all of them fit very well with these characteristics and the definition of platforms. What you can see at the end of the slide is basically some of the regulations that have been pushed forward by the European Commission in the last years, including, for example, the regulatory already packaged the Digital Services Act that includes both the Digital Market Act and the Digital Services Act. Both of them were published at the end of 2020, and I think it's worth having a look at them. So some reflections, looking a bit at AI4EU, DIH4AI, maybe also for the other project that we have seen today. Again, coming to these economies of scale and network effects. We are talking about multi-sided markets, so either with two sides or with multiple sides. And this means that we need to look for models that reinforce each other, or said in other words, the platform becomes more valuable as usage increases. I normally use this example of the operating systems in a mobile phone, where basically Android and the Apple OS have been very successful because they have managed to create a community on top of them that have developed a lot of apps. So the operating system becomes relevant basically because a lot of services are provided on top of them. So each of them provide value to each other. So, and that is basically what we are looking for here. And in fact, in the previous presentations, we have seen a lot of emphasis on creating a community that basically increases the amount of services, data sets, algorithms, technologies. So basically, you are really talking about an environment where you can find a lot of assets. So the critical mass of those assets will really provide value to the platform and will really create somehow the perception of potential users about how important is being in that ecosystem or not. So in this particular case, DIH4AI, I think is bringing a lot of added value to AI4EU and in fact to the sustainability of AI4EU, because it brings a network of networks, as I call it, basically because here we have the networks of DIH and then the networks of each of the DIH with all their customers, their collaborators, their co-creators. So basically a huge amount of stakeholders that can already feed the platform, the AI4EU platform and the other platforms that are around that. So in that respect, it brings a lot of community and it could create these kind of network effects that I have mentioned. Some aspects that I have also realized along my years dealing with the sustainability of many initiatives is that since we are talking about a multi-sided environment where you really need to create value for the different sides and all of them reinforce each other, support to the community is key. So this means that whatever you do in the future, you need to ensure that you have a good customer support with a help desk, that you really take care of quality of service and that you are able to measure that and to react on that, that you generate quality of documentation, especially when you are talking about generating software, no, as it could be the case of AI4EU, where you are expecting other companies to create additional developments on top of what is already in the platform. So quality of documentation is key. You have to provide guidance. So how-to guides for the different kind of users, different stakeholders. So it cannot be that you don't know very well how to do something and there is no one you can refer to. There is no guidance that you can find in written form. And then this relates very much to the next point, which is easy to use and very effective interfaces. And here we talk about, for sure, the websites, social media, but also many others. So this support to the community is key. Continuous support, making sure that the services you provide are really of high quality. And this means that you really need to have a very clear governance structure that ensures that there are responsibilities assigned to different people or to different organizations so that you can really comply with this kind of quality of service and quality of experience indicators. Then something that I have added, in fact, while I was listening to some of you, I added this to the presentation, clear terms and conditions, especially when you are really basing your value on the combination of many different tools, software, hardware, artifacts, then you really need to ensure that there is compatibility between the different licenses and that clear terms and conditions prevail and they are well communicated to the different stakeholders that will make use of these different assets. And finally, talking about sustainability means that you really need to define one or several business models. I think this is really a key thing, so you cannot avoid this. It's not possible to think about sustainability if you don't define a business model or a multiplicity of business models that ensure that you have not only defined the stakeholders and provide the value that they are expecting, but also that these responsibilities in terms of paying are also very, very clear. And here I would like to come back to the point that I mentioned before, the role of data and the supporting technologies in the business model, because I think this is the the way most of the platforms, especially when we talk about B2C or C2C platforms, are operating nowadays. So data could also play a major role in the way we define the business models. And so far, I've not seen a lot of things happening in that respect. And here, at least looking at the challenges of the collaboration between AI4EU and DIH4AI, I would say that one important thing is the compatibility of business models between AI4EU as online AI on-demand platform, and also the business models of the DIH as such, and there should be a fair distribution of value, and I would even say of cost. Let me go now to the last slide, which is a bit about organizational structures. Of course, there are many ways of doing this, and when you talk also about defining business models, you need to have an organizational structure that will make all this work possible. Of course, there are many possibilities, and here I have listed some of them, but I wanted to maybe to go more in detail through some of the initiatives that I have gone through, where Atos, the company I work for, has been collaborating, and where we are investing and why we are investing in them. So they offer different models, but I think that all of them are very close to what we really want to achieve with these networks of digital innovation hubs, with the AI on-demand platform, and in general with the combination of all these structures and technologies. So I have put some examples like the FIWARE Foundation, the Factory, the Industrial Data Space Association, and GaiaX. In all of them, my company is pouring money, and in general, all of them comply with the principle of collaborating and co-creating, but at the same time competing. So none of these cases are companies that are for-profit companies trying to create something with whom we will generate money. So basically, we have put money because there is a goal that cannot be achieved by a single organization, where you really need the cooperation of many different stakeholders, and we are in many cases competitors in the real commercial playground. But in the case of the FIWARE Foundation, for example, the motivation was really to change the status quo of a business in smart cities, and then has been also extended to other different sectors. At that time, when we created the FIWARE Foundation in the smart cities market, basically there were platforms that were completely closed source, and where basically customers were really locked into the vendors. So what we really wanted to do is really to disrupt the industry by promoting open APIs, open standards, so very open models where customers would not be locked in very concrete sectors, and they would have the ability to choose between the different providers and vendors based also on the quality of the service they provide. Of course, here interoperability was a key thing, and this could not be achieved by a single company. This required the collaboration of different companies, and therefore we decided to put money in order to create an environment that could really disrupt the market and give opportunities to many other parties that at that time didn't have a market share in smart cities. As mentioned, this model has now been extended to other communities. Then for Industrial Data Space Association, basically we are trying to do a bit the same. It's not exactly the same goal, but what we really want to ensure is that we promote data sharing in Europe, that we create a data economy, and that we support values, European values, like data sovereignty that was mentioned by my colleagues before. Again, this cannot be achieved by a single company. This requires the agreement between many of them. And also, thanks to these agreements, what we are doing is developing different software and hardware artifacts that are somehow supporting this development of the data economy following those principles. GaiaX is also very much the same thing, but of course here we are also relying on the federation of different computing resources in Europe. Each vendor has their different computing resources, edge computing, cloud computing, high performance computing, and basically we are providing the users with an easier access to all these computing resources that we have in Europe, ensuring that all these vendors comply with some principles, including ethical principles, and that we are doing the data economy we want in Europe. So again, interoperability is key, and I think that also some previous colleagues mentioned these initiatives, precisely talking about interoperability. And finally, the Factory. This is an initiative set up by Innovalia, by Engineering, and by Atos, and we are also investing in that precisely because what we want to create is an experimentation environment where really companies can see showcases of different companies. So a bit this concept of test before invest that is being put in practice by many digital innovation hubs, and where we basically put together some resources that increase the visibility of many of the digital solutions for the manufacturing domain. So as you can see, all of them somehow share the objectives of something that cannot be achieved by a single company, and where different competitors and collaborators come together to co-create an environment where we can change the way things are working nowadays. So I think that this is very illicit. I think that AI4EU and the other projects that have been presented today somehow go in line with this. But again, in order to make this successful, this obliges you in any case to think about the business model and the structure that you can set up in order to ensure that all these activities happen in the right way. And for this, again, I would like to come back to these points that I mentioned here, because the support to the community is key, terms and conditions are key, defining the business models is key, and then having a very clear plan on how to define the network effects and which network effects do you really want to achieve in your network in order to ensure that your objectives are fulfilled. I think that with this, I finish my presentation, Natalie, and of course, I'm open to discussion and questions. And I know that I brought more questions, as I mentioned in the beginning, than answers. But in any case, I hope this is useful also to discuss about some of these points that are so important for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nuria, for providing this conceptual framework, how to think about sustainability, and also very valuable insights for the AI4EU project, for DIH4AI project, what we need to consider in order to really to fulfill our value proposition. Unfortunately, time flies. I learned an enormous amount from our speakers, but sort of the time is running out. So we need to conclude, and we need to speak about lessons learned, what are the steps forward. And I will give the floor to Giovanna Galasso, who has enormous amount of experience with European project, with the project we're talking to today, but also with others, and she will share her consideration.
Thank you, Natalie. Well, I would like to give one last message, which I think is very in line with some of the takeaway from Arnaud. We have today, discussed how to breaking silos in data innovation in Europe, and we have shared the experience of AI4EU, apps for data, and DIH4AI. However, we have not included maybe one of the actors of the ecosystem, which are the AI Center of Excellence. As Arnaud said, the industry want to access to AI excellence research, and it's very important to speed up the transfers of research results to the market in Europe. So I think my point of view is also that there is a need to reinforce also the collaboration among AI Center of Excellence. For example, the ones within ICT48 project and the DIHs, the European Digital Innovation Hub, to speed up such transfer. Of course, the output of this research will be the AI on the bar platform. The AI4EU is a kind of platform for the output, but here the DIHs can really have a role, and they are unenable. There are of course good practices of collaboration. I'm sure that all the apps in our project are best practices, but there is still a lot to be done and also to be understood. We are also there is also another project we are part is called the Vision, which is the coordination action of ICT48, and we are trying to study the current situation, through a survey that we will launch over the next months, and it will be the basis to understand how to improve this collaboration. We will direct it to ICT48 and ICT49 Consortium. It's a good idea to also to send it to the participant of EU apps for data, and here we will try to explore this current relationship and collaboration schemes among AI Center of Excellence and Digital Innovation Apps. We will try to understand how the Center of Excellence has collaborated with the DIHs or with any organization connected to the DIH, startups, SMEs, large enterprise. I do hope that we will have also useful recommendation to European Commission in order to improve collaboration between the AI Center of Excellence and the Digital Innovation Apps, and thus speeding up to the transfer of research result to the market. And to be honest, I really do hope to have also useful insight over the next meetings that I hope we can have, because I truly think that all these initiatives need to work in synergies. Maybe one last point, if I have just 1 minute, because I also liked a lot the last takeaway message from Arnaud, the access that the industry want to have an access to an AI to a platform that is allowed to develop a trustworthy application. I really think, and also as Nuria said, we need also guidance, support to use the tools. I really think that the Digital Innovation Hub are a real role here, and this is also stressed in the proposal, because the proposal explicitly say that the European Digital Innovation Hub or Digital Innovation Hub should be the role to minimize the risk to implement resulting from a lack of knowledge and expertise in the market. So I think that also, again, the Digital Innovation Hubs need to support the implementation of these AI application based on following the AI, the trustworthy AI principle.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Joanna, for these valuable lessons and sort of the idea that we should continue collaborating within this group, but also with other projects, like you mentioned, Vision, someone mentioned Trust before. There are many other initiatives which are very, very valuable. And I think it's important to remember that, you know, we all will win, as Nuria said, when we are thinking about this economy of scale and having this network of networks in order to successfully achieve this data and AI innovation in Europe. So my role as a moderator is to remind everyone that the time is running out. So I would like to thank the speakers. I would like to, first of all, ask all the speakers to switch on their cameras so that you can see them once again, and thank them very much. We had some questions asking how you can get in touch with some speakers. Obviously, all speakers are available through the platforms of the project, but also you can find them on social media, on LinkedIn, and they will be happy to answer your questions about their project and maybe other projects. So do we have any other questions? No, we had just this one. So unfortunately, also we do not have much more time for any debate. Thank you very much once again to Arnaud, Nuria, Giovanna, Sergio, Dominic, and obviously Anna Garcia, who's helping us to moderate the session, Thomas. It was really my pleasure organizing this session and listening to you. Thank you for sharing your time and your insights. As I said, the recordings and slides and presentations are going to be available, so everyone is welcome to consult them. And we also hope that this is like a beginning. As I said, it's going to be a beginning of a beautiful friendship. It's going to be a beginning of beautiful collaboration between our project and also other projects. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time, and goodbye.